This episode of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast is brought to you by On Point Pomade. Keep your beard and hair looking on point with their line of pomades and beard oils over at onpointpomade.com. Use our code BSP15 at checkout and get 15% off your total purchase order. So thanks again to On Point Pomade for sponsoring our show. This episode is also sponsored by the Bean Bastard Coffee. Head over to thebeanbastard.com and pick up any one of their delicious hand-roasted coffees. Coffee lovers will also enjoy their hand-cut and handmade espresso candles and soaps as well. If you're in the Buffalo, New York area, head to their store located at 448 Elmwood Avenue. And thanks again to the Bean Bastard for supporting this show. The Speaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Rockabilia.com. With over 500,000 officially licensed items in their online store, you're guaranteed to find something you need. Use our code BREWtally and get 10% off your total purchase order. Now on to the show.
People say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is Rachael Madori. Some of you may be aware of her from her time in the adult entertainment industry, and some of you, if you listen to this podcast enough, might actually remember her as a guest, a multiple-time guest over on the Peer Pleasure podcast, which is actually how I really got to know her in the sense of getting to know who she is and more about her, and instantly was attracted to wanting to talk to her just because she's so genuine and authentic. She has since obviously left the adult entertainment industry and become, bear with me, I'm probably going to pronounce this incorrectly, become a sommelier, I think is how I pronounced it after Googling it and the pronunciation. But basically has dedicated her life, recent life, into learning all that there is about wines and regional wines and the grapes and just, you know, the history and all that kind of stuff. And how is that not really befitting this show, especially? It was really great getting to sit down and talk with her. I actually got to talk with her. She had just got done celebrating her birthday with a couple of friends. And we had some wine. She was I don't know. I don't even know if she said what she had. I don't even know if I asked. Shame on me. I, however, being more into reds than anything, I ended up getting this blended red, a sweet blend of reds, by the Ménage à Trois. It's a Dolce. And for those watching on the Patreon, you can see this bottle right here. Honestly, I'm not typically much for blends, personally, but this actually was really good, and if you watch the video that's up on YouTube, or if you're watching the YouTube version, you will see me drink probably about a little under half. I had 2 glasses during our chat, and I actually thought it was really delicious, and the hard part is sometimes when you're drinking wine is, especially when you're having a conversation, is these things just go down so fucking fast. And I really didn't want to come across as a lush and just pound this bottle of wine. But the conversation was good. Actually, I think it was great, personally. I do want to give a trigger warning. I've never had to kind of give one of these, so forgive kind of the naivety of maybe not addressing it properly or using the proper verbiage. Rachael is... and I'm trying to remember the actual terminology she has used online to make sure I'm getting this correct. But I believe we don't say it's a suicide attempt. I want to say it is a suicide recovery, I believe was the terminology or the phrasing that she had used online somewhere. Essentially, Rachael is diagnosed bipolar. She's very open and honest about that. We even talk about that a little bit. But part of the reason it took us so long to get to this chat was she had another attempt and another lapse. And we talk about it. We talk about all of it. Like I said, after listening to Rachael on Pure Pleasure podcast, I knew I wanted to have her on because she's just so open and honest about things. And it's so great to have a guest do that. But I do know maybe for some people listening to this, it might trigger some things. So just a forewarning. I don't necessarily have the timestamp, but I'm sure you will kind of see it coming because we get into it and I ask questions about it from my perspective, from kind of a psychological perspective. But we went there, and I think it actually is incredible. It's kind of really where I felt the turning point for her and I to kind of really bond with one another over just, me not being afraid to ask her a no pun intended, brutally honest question that I had literally just thought of, and her just being a badass and just answering it and then kind of exploring the question with me. But I do want to give credence to it. I do want to make sure that it doesn't upset anyone, that you weren't aware of it coming. So just forewarning. And with all that said, let's get into this really awesome lengthy chat with Rachael Madori, and I will talk to you all very quickly on the other side of it. But as I was starting to say, I have this problem with drinking where I like a lot of different things, but it gets to the point where it's a little bit hard. Like with beer, I have a real hard time spending like $10 on a beer because I'm like, what if it sucks?
Really?
Yeah. So
Well,
how
often do you have a beer that like really sucks? Also, is $10 a lot for? I don't drink beer. The only beer I like is Guinness, and I don't know why, but
because it's delicious.
I would get off of work, and I lived right on Hollywood and Vine, and there was this bar there, and I would just walk in at like 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning when I got out of work, when I used to be like a porter and a polisher, and I would just fucking go take Guinness, just chug Guinnesses until 3 in the morning and then go home. That sounds really sad, but I thought it was a really fun time in my life. I love Guinness. It's delicious.
It is absolutely delicious. I do, I'm sure you have heard of something similar, but like shipped shopping, where I go grocery shopping for people who don't want to do it.
Oh, well, I'm the people who don't want to do it.
So today, actually, I had to pick up a lot of Guinness and stuff, getting people ready for their St. Patty's Day celebrations. And I was thinking to myself, I was like,
Tuesday, shit, you were probably busy.
Kind of, yeah. But I was kind of thinking today, I was like, it sucks that the Irish car bomb is considered such a tacky thing to drink right around now, because I think those are just fucking delicious and I love them. So I'll have to refrain.
You caught me, because when I said I would go and do like shot, like I would drink a bunch of Guinness, it was just like 5 car bombs in a row. And I know it's like so culturally inappropriate to call them Irish car bombs, but like that's what I was drinking.
Yeah.
And I would do like 5 of them in a row. And one time there was this guy there, and I was like already drunk, and I bet him that I could do 3 faster than he could. Like I challenged him to a race. And I was bald at the time, but I was wearing a really beautiful lace front wig. And he was like, yo, no, there's no way. Whatever. He was just being a drunk dude, and I was just being a drunk bitch. And they lined up 6 car bombs. And if there's Irish people listening, I don't know what else to call them. Guinness and Bailey shots, whatever. And as soon as he started the timer, I ripped my wig off and threw it on the bar and shot back to 3. And he just looked at me like that's not even fair. Like, of course I won. Like, he had to pay for all 6 drinks. But that's what I think of when I think about Guinness.
I don't know. It's kind of funny because it's like, I try not to get super shitty when, I go to a pub or a bar or something and they have the Guinness on nitro and they just pour it like, not the right way. And I'm just like, it's fine. I'll just have to wait for my beer to look like.
It's fine. It's okay. Even though like it's twitching like in the back of your head. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, no, like $10 is in the world of craft beer. I think actually probably 7 to 10 is probably a good entryway to a lot of craft beers now, because the thing seems to be more sort of exclusivity. It's a limited batch release. Very much, I would say, similar to different wines. Like, some of them it may not be that it's, like, I guess a better way to describe for me kind of is like the one thing that I got into wine, and it's not really, I mean, it is a wine, but it's more of a dessert wine. I'm big into like ports. I like port, and that's a thing that a lot of people don't seemingly like, because it's too sweet, it's too whatever.
Yeah. That's like a weird.
Yeah. So I know that that's something I'm very big into, and always enjoy trying different ones, and kind of even getting into the different years, like the 10, 20. Like I looked at one day when I had a nice bonus for Christmas a couple years ago. I was like, am I really kind of contemplating spending like almost $300 on like a 30-year-old port? And I thought about it, and I did not pull the trigger on it. I decided to go more quantity over quality at that point.
Thought about it though.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those where sometimes you look at some of these price points and you kind of have to determine, is it the value, I guess, the intrinsic value of the thing, the perceived value of the enjoyment you'll have versus the investment into it.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, you've been breaking up a bit, so I'm just trying to shut everything down on my computer.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say I have nothing running other than this tonight.
No, I'm just trying to like make sure that I don't have anything else running right now. Well, no, but I can hear you now. But no, I don't know, because what are we talking about? Like alcohol as an investment?
I mean, that's a good talking point, I think. I mean, because some people, like, literally, you can kind of see this beer fridge. I had to buy a whole nother fridge just for my beers because I was buying so many and doing beer trades with a lot of people that I wasn't drinking it fast enough, because, at a 16 ounce, or even in some instances 32 ounces, with some of these getting up into, the 12, 13, 14%, that's not really something you're just going to sit there and casually drink. And it's a lot. So it's
all about beer that way.
Yeah. So to me, I invested in a new fridge so I can hold on to some of my other things and get to them in a timely manner, as opposed to kind of looking at it going, well, fuck, I guess I have to because I bought it, or it was gifted to me, so I have to enjoy this soon. And I feel like it's kind of a lot more, it's interesting. And I feel like maybe this isn't kind of talking again about investment in spirits, and kind of, you're working as a, and I always mispronounce this, so apologies, being a sommelier. Is that how you pronounce it? Sommelier. Okay, I was close.
Yeah, it doesn't, honestly, it's fine. It doesn't matter how people say it. We get the point.
But I think, for a while I had this thing where I wanted to learn a lot of craft cocktails. So my wife and I ended up investing in kind of like a nice dry bar. And a lot of people would be like, oh, it's really impressive you have all that. But the irony is that there would be other people who look at it and go, you guys probably have a drinking problem because you have all this booze in your house. And it's like, the problem is when we can't keep it. That's the problem.
So you can't have it in the house. That's an issue.
So I always feel like there's this perception, I guess, that to those, it's foolish to spend your money on these things and to invest in kind of learning literally through taste, the culture of various areas, different, I don't want to say subcultures, but I was going to say almost more like local flavor, and then the history kind of things, like you get into some of these tequilas and, the agave, and they tell you about how they source the agave, and it's on a family farm, that the family farm has been in been in their family for hundreds of years and so forth. And to me, I feel like it's those stories that kind of add to the drink that you're having or whatever, and you kind of can learn and get a sense and taste of things.
Well, exactly. It's I mean, that's why I fell in love with wine, right? Like, you have a story about wine. Like, you could be talking about like Medio Pepe and some of the best known producers that are huge in wine, but you could be talking about, there's this wine that we have on our tasting menu right now, and it's an all woman owned winery, small winery, like not a lot of people have heard about it, but she has a story, and like she really made it in this really difficult area in France to make it, and especially as an all women owned and operated business. And like those stories, and then you taste it, and then you taste how divine it is and how elegant it is, and it's kind of this entire experience to where it came down to this one person and this one idea, and now you're drinking it and you're enjoying it. And that's, I mean, why I fell in love with wine was the story behind all of it. And then I got introduced to sake and pisco and all these other liquors that have all these other fascinating cultures and stories behind it. And, you know, people will see, yeah, like if you have a big bar in your house, they'll be like, oh, like you drink too much. Like, I personally don't keep hard liquor in my house because I will fucking just do shots every night. And like, that's like a personal choice. But like, if I have a nice bottle of wine, or I've been trying to find like a wine from 1993, which was the year I was born, so I can save it. So like, I'll keep some nice bottles, but you know, I think the most important thing, like when you think about drinking, you think about consuming these spirits, like they have so much history behind them. That's why they're called spirits. Like, you do even think about why they're called spirits, like what they did during the Great Depression, what they did during Prohibition, after Prohibition, like, you know, whether it's poison or not, which we all know it technically is, like, it's still a beautiful substance. And like, it has brought joy to people. And like, it's fun. I honestly, like, I highly believe I was like a drunk sailor in my past life somewhere in the timeline, because like I was even at the bar the other night, and I always go to like dark, dingy, like hole in the wall bars in New York, like downtown, all wood, dark, everything. And I'll always get like a vodka knee or like a rum knee, and I'll sit in the corner. And I swear to Christ, I think I was like a crazy dyke sailor, you know, and like that's probably what I was. I mean, like I'm just this. I'm the same thing now. I'm just like a weird masculine lesbian sommelier now, and I'm drinking wine instead of rum. But I'm almost certain I was a pirate. And you know, liquor has so much cool history with like weird shit like that, and dens and pubs, and like all these fascinating things that surround just booze. And I just think it has such a dope history that professionals like us who are interested in it, or collectors, you know, I think we're the only ones who geek out about it.
Well, I feel like that's kind of the thing that's been going on with.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Very good. I was going to say, I think that
literally just did 12-course wine tasting at fucking Aquavie, so I'm here, but I'm weird.
Well, I think that's it. I mean, that's one of the things that first got me into wine. Is it feels more like how, and now I can actually speak to this since I almost do it nightly, but it almost feels like the same kind of rush, the wave kind of getting high on like weed. It feels like that. It's a very slow rolling kind of thing. It just kind of presents itself to you and then just kind of envelopes you and takes over. And it's kind of crazy when you're in the midst of it and you kind of realize like, oh, okay, but like it doesn't feel like when you're wine drunk, it doesn't really feel like any other drunk that you've had. Like it's kind of its own unique animal.
I've always tried to understand that, because I mean, I've always broke it down to like, you know, people who say, oh, tequila makes me crazy, scotch makes me sleepy, whatever it is. I have always been the person, like the dick, who's like, it's all ethyl alcohol. It's the same chemical structure. It doesn't affect you any differently. It all makes you exactly the same. Your brain is just associating different moods with different alcohols, which is what I believe to be true. And like, it is literally all the same chemical, but with the exception of like, yeah, there's different ingredients with different shit. But what's getting you drunk and hungover and euphoric is all ethyl alcohol. But you know what? When I drink wine, I'm way more calm than when I drink tequila. And I don't know if it's like the rate at which it hits me, or the fact that I kind of sip on wine a bit slower than tequila, but I've never gotten a black eye on wine, but tequila, I've had a couple.
I feel like, I mean, I was going to say, I feel like it's kind of a classier thing. Like people aren't, like when I have to go grocery shopping and people put wine on their thing, sometimes I shouldn't probably say this. I don't always card people because I'm like, you got like adult groceries, you have like a $400,000 home, and you have like a Chianti and some other shit. Like I doubt you're underage.
Chianti, you're fine. You're at least 30.
Yeah, so it was one of those where it's like just kind of use some better judgment, because I mean, if it was like a 30 rack of PBR and some like El Toro, I'd be like, well, I need to see that ID, please.
Yeah, let's slow your roll. Like PBR, come on. That's the first beer I ever shotgunned at like 12. Like,
But actually, you kind of bring up something that I find kind of interesting. As I've heard you talk on Dewey's show and just kind of in general, do you feel that there's kind of maybe a very psychological approach to drinking for some people, where, or do you actually? I should put it that way. Do you look at it kind of more from a psychological standpoint of noticing how other people react to different spirits, having, being someone like myself probably that enjoys going to dive bars and kind of sitting back and just kind of seeing how people are?
I think it's 50-50. I think it's psychological and I think it's people just wanting to escape. Like there's only like two reasons for booze. There is to numb things or to get excited and have fun. Like alcohol doesn't do much else. It either makes you a terror monster, or it makes you a happy, like crazy person that is hilarious. Like at least in my experience. And I don't know like if that's just like what I've experienced with other people and what I experienced with myself. But I think psychologically it's more psychological. Like I have a different mood going to my local rum bar. Shout out to Rogers Garden in Flatbush, which is a woman black owned business that I live next door to, and they have the best jerk chicken and rum bar in fucking Brooklyn. And I go there, I live next door, and I like to sit in the corner and but I go there with this mentality that like I'm just gonna be a like fly on the wall, and I'm gonna have my beautiful pirate sailor lesbian fantasy by myself, have a couple drinks of rum, get lit, and I'm gonna walk home. Or when I go out like tonight, I had a fuck ton of wine, for my birthday. I'm in like a more like, oh, I'm bougie. I am in Midtown. Like you have this different idea with what you're drinking. So I think that whatever you go into, like that's what the alcohol is gonna do to you. Like I don't know. It's like, and if I go out with my girlfriends, like I'm gonna get fucked up and I'm probably gonna get into a fight. Like it's like I can have a really elite bougie night like tonight. I can have a really chill solitary night like at a rum bar, or I can like just go get into a fight at a club. Like I think it's all psychological. It doesn't matter what you're fucking drinking. It matters why you're doing what you're doing. But you have to know yourself true enough to know that it's not the alcohol, it's your behavior and what you're seeking that you're doing.
That sounds like as someone who has gone to therapy myself in the last year, that sounds like something that you come to the conclusion of after you've gone through some therapy and you can address those behavioral patterns in yourself and others.
Oh yeah, well you have to address them first, right? Like a couple years ago before therapy, I would have been like, no, like I'm perfect and everything else is everybody else's problem. I don't know. Like I was a fucking therapy. But now I'll be like, oh no, like I literally took 5 shots of vodka, said I'm gonna black out and fight a bitch, and then it happened. Like that was not a logical way to go about my evening, but that is what I did. And you have to take responsibility for being that kind of person. Like I don't mind it. I like getting crazy sometimes. I don't judge myself. I think I'm fucking awesome. But it's not the alcohol that's doing it. Like you're doing it,
I, having worked door at a bar now for almost coming up on a year, at a dive bar that I have been going to for probably 15 years or plus at this point. It's funny to watch some of our regulars or some of the people that come in and maybe didn't have the best outing the last time they were there. And they're like, yeah, I can't do that because, like you said, it gets me crazy. And I'm like, I don't think that's what got you crazy. There was about an hour's worth of arguments and bullshit you were saying before you started drinking heavily that I think led to most of the problems you were having.
Yeah, it's like, especially when like I remember like the dive bars I worked at, especially in North Jersey, like my regulars will be like, oh man, I don't have a night like last night. Like, let me try something different. I'm like, bro, like I'm almost certain it's because your wife came in. Like, I don't think it was the beer I gave you. I'm certain it was many other factors. But like I've caught myself doing the same thing. I'll be like, oh, I can't drink scotch. The last time I did that, I pulled a gun on someone. Like I just like those little things that like you do when you're crazy, when you're drunk. Like you can't attribute to the alcohol you're drinking. Like I used to say I get really crazy on scotch and like ports and Henny and shit like that because I would do crazy shit when I was drinking that. It wasn't the alcohol. It was just my alcohol of choice during that period of time when I was a psychopath, you know? Like, when our regulars come in and they're like, oh, I can't have that tequila you gave me. It made me crazy. I'm like, no, bitch, you're just crazy. Like, that's it. Like, drink whatever you want, but, like, just know that you're crazy.
It's weird. I had one of my bartenders make a comment probably about 4 or 5 months ago, and I kind of took offense to it. And as I've thought about it a little bit more, I guess I kind of agree, because I feel like, all of us are, for the most part, all in either our early 30s or someone closer to my age, where I'm almost like looking at 40 in the next like 2 years. And he was like, oh man, I mean, if you're working in the bar industry, you got to be a little broken and crazy and have something wrong with you. Cause like, to stay in it this long or at this age, like, you're avoiding something, responsibility, whatever it may be. And I thought that was kind of an interesting take. And I was like, I mean, I don't get fucked up like every day, or I don't have any problems. And then I kind of thought about it. And I was like, it was an interesting thinking point for me of this perception, even within the industry, that it's only for those who, for a certain age, and then it's like once you're done with college and you're not college aged anymore, probably shouldn't be a bartender or in the industry. And I think that's so weird.
I hate that fucking mindset. That's not even, honestly, like, if I would have looked at him and been like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, this is a stupid mindset. That's a huge capitalistic, like, just tightly wound, like, consumed by society idea that any service industry job is either for students or for, people of a lower class. Like, it's just this idea that, like, the service industry, because you are serving people. Also, first of all, I would rather serve a fucking beer to some dude at a bar than be sucking ass to some CEO at a business. Like, 100 million times over, and also making the money that we can make in this industry, like, outside of, like, wearing a fucking suit, crying at 5 a.m. on Wall Street, and then, like, cheating on your wife with someone because you're desperate and sad. Like, I'm sorry, like, the whole idea of the service industry, or, like, whether it be service or blue collar or trade work, like, anything like that, being, like, this thing that is for college students, which I get less now, I think. Like, when I was a captain and a waiter and stuff in my, like, mid-20s, it was like, when are you going to do something real? And I'm like, I like what I do. Like, I like serving people. Like, my love language is acts of service. I love going to work, and I love serving people and, like, making things happy for people, like, but then I started getting these questions like, well, what are you really going to do? And I was like, well, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I make money and I'm fine. Like, what? I don't need anything else. But then I started studying wine so I could, like, say I had a trade or whatever I could do, so I could, be an adult. But I'm still doing the same fucking thing. I'm still at restaurants. I'm still, serving people, and, people think it's cool and prestigious because it's wine. But in reality, I'm still just enjoying what I'm doing with hospitality. But people, like, who just assume that when you're in the service industry, it's just a pit stop and not a career point, they're just so consumed by something other. Like, I honestly, like, I can't think of another job, like, that would be entertaining to me. Like, what else would I do? Like look at a computer and answer emails? Like, I'm pouring wine and meeting, like, cool fucking people. Like, I think that's what it means. Like, this is, especially with this new job where I'm working now, like, it's really my dream job. And when people say, you'll never work a day in your life if you love what you do, like, I understand I want to work, and it's difficult because of the things I have to study, especially me trying to, like, understand French wine, because I mainly have experience with South American and Spanish wine. It's very, very difficult, but I love every day I go in. And, like, that's a cool feeling to, like, be getting paid to go into somewhere where you love. So people who, look at bartenders or look at servers or look at somms are like, well, when are you gonna do something else? I'm like, bitch, I'm having fun. Like, what are you doing? Like, what are these people doing that's right? Because I don't think what they're doing is right.
It's something I've never thought of, and maybe you can elaborate on this a little bit more. Is because you were just saying that the French wines are where you're not as well versed as some of the other places where they come from. Is that due to what's available in like the East Coast in New York here in the States, or is that just something like what is the cause of that?
Well, the cause of that for me is when I helped open La Maison in Manhattan, it is the wine list is strictly coastal. So the
Okay.
only wines we're working with are coastal wines, right? And France does not have, like, of course we have Corsica and things like that, but France does not have a lot of coastal wines. And then the other restaurant I ran was in Brooklyn, and that was specifically South American Spanish wines because that's what the wine list was, because that's what the owner decided, and that's also what the wine director decided, and that's also what went best with the Peruvian cuisine. So my past 3 years running these two restaurants, managing them and working on the wine programs, I was kind of subjected to coastal wines, island wines, mostly like Spanish wines and South American wines. So I never really had that experience with very traditional French wines. Before this, I worked at a restaurant called El Buco, which is a old Italian restaurant in New York, like classic OG restaurant here. So I have a lot of experience with Italian wine. So with Soms, like, your experience just comes from where you work. Like, there's really only so much you can do, right? Like, I have an internship that I got accepted to in Valencia, which I'm not going to go to for a few years because I want to stay in New York and like build my Som name out here. But as a Som, like, wherever you go, wherever you work, like, that's what you learn. Unless, like, yeah, I study and I read books, but there's literally nothing that can teach you about wine besides serving, tasting, and treating it with guests, because it's just its own fucking thing. So now I'm working at a place where, like, there is a lot of French influence in our head sommelier, who is an absolute fucking awesome dude, like, totally like, so respectful. I totally look up to him. And he's from France, and he actually won Best Young Sommelier of France in 2016. So I'm really learning under someone that's awesome. Like, that's kind of what he's teaching me now is French wine. So now I've had my experience with Spain. I've had my experience with South and North America. I've had my experience with New Zealand and Australia. Now I'm honing in my experience on France and Germany. And that's just going to make me a lot more well-rounded as a Som. And then I can just fucking bounce off and do what I want to do in Spain because I'll have a fully rounded career. So it really just depends on where you work, unless you're literally rich and you can buy a bunch of French wine and study and taste it, and get drunk every night. Like, it's hard.
Do you feel the clientele, and this is probably speaking out of lack of experience and some slight ignorance on my part, do you feel that when you're serving these people, like, these perfectly curated meals with the wine, all this kind of stuff, that people really know what the fuck they're actually like tasting and what they're drinking and stuff like that? Or is it kind of like well, I have the money and I should, like, this is kind of what's expected kind of a thing? Like, is it a little of both maybe?
I'm gonna be for real. I'm literally a trained sommelier and I work in fine dining, and I just had dinner and I could not fucking tell you, like, if it was a perfect wine pairing or a horrible one. I think it was absolutely divine because the food and the wine was good. Like, I don't think anyone is going to sit down, unless you're a fucking critic. I do not think anyone's going to sit down and, like, really fucking, like, pair it. I'm sorry. Like, you're going to sip and you're going to eat and you're going to drink. It's going to be an experience. Like, I don't really think it's that serious, but there are people that I do get that are like, oh, well, what's this wine? And because they want to show me that they know what they're talking about, which I accept openly. Like, the reason I got into wine was to strictly be like the reason I get into most things, like the reason I used to be a porn star was like, everyone was like, you can't do this. And I was like, fuck you, I want to try it. And then I did it. And then they're like, well, you can't be a Som. Like, that's, a respectable career. And I'm like, fuck you, I'm going to do it. Like, so most of my careers I just do out of spite, because it's funny that I can be successful and everything. So I don't know, when it comes to like pairings and things like that, like, I don't know, it's not that fucking serious. Like, I don't think they know what we're talking about. Like, we don't even know what we're talking about half the time. Like, yeah, I know the wine, I know the grape, I know how it was aged, I know the producer, I know if they're biodynamic or organic or if they're just calling themselves natural, I know if they're using flora, I know when disgorgement is, but do I really fucking know what it tastes like to you? No. I'm just going to tell you my beautiful buzzwords that explain the wine. I'm going to explain why it goes so beautifully with the dish that it's been paired with. And if you don't even fucking like it, I don't know what to do.
It is one.
like, everyone's like, why do you do wine? And I was like, my whole point to do wine, and like, I know we're getting a Michelin star next September. When they pull out Michelin for New York City next year, I'm going to be at that event with my team, and we're all going to get a fucking star, and I know it. But a $4,000 Barolo tastes the same as a $5 bottle of Barefoot wine as long as you're drinking it with people that you're having fun with. That's all.
I think that's been such an interesting thing for me, being into so many different things between spirits, beers, wines, stuff like that personally. And I kind of take it as a compliment. Like when I go to enough different places, like no one knows, like I don't have like, I mean, I am a Jack and Coke person. Like that is probably, if you gave me that 99 times out of 100, I'd probably be like, cool, whatever, totally fine with it. But it's funny because like some places I'll go and they're like, what do you want? I'm like, oh, you got that beer on tap. That sounds good. Give me that. And they're like, oh, really? That's like a double IPA. And I'm like, sure, fuck it, let's go. We just got a cider in at our bar. It's a black cherry cider, and it's so fucking good.
Oh, that sounds yummy.
And so, like, I've been drinking that, and everyone's like, I didn't think you like ciders. I was like, I like ciders. I just don't drink a ton of them. And same with like my booze. It's like sometimes like I'll like for a little while I was on these Anhio old fashions, and everyone's like, what the fuck? Why are you drinking tequila? You don't like tequila. And I was like, I like tequila. I don't like shit tequila, but I like tequila. And that was the thing, is like it kind of, I guess, very much how I look outwardly. I love doing the same thing to people because people don't assume that I like sports. So when I go off and tell you like, oh, I'm a huge Atlanta Braves fan, been one since like 95. And I can tell you a lot about the teams, or like, hey, I'm really big into basketball. Got into basketball in the mid 90s. Like I can tell you about all these different eras and all the players and stats and all this shit. And people will just be like, bro, I didn't think you knew. I mean, looking at you, I just assumed you don't like fucking sports. And I'm like,
people are just stupid and just assume stupid shit. Like,
absolutely. But I think,
don't really know what people assume when they look at me, but I also don't really care. Like, I don't know. Like, if someone like straight up came out to me and was like, I think this about you when I look at you, and I'm just like, okay, like what? I cannot control other people's perceptions of me, but that's like alcohol. And like, I always love watching these TikToks of bartenders who make these TikToks that say like what this drink says about you, and like vodka cranberry is always the worst one of these like sloppy blonde white girls. And I'm like vodka cranberry is good. Like I'm a sloppy brunette white girl, but like vodka cranberries are fucking delicious. No one can deny that. If you feel like shit and like you don't want to party and you still want to get drunk, vodka cranberries are amazing options. So like these ideas of like what you drink or like what you look like or what people assume you're having, I just think that's so silly. Like, I don't know, like when people see me, like, especially like my new job at BREWtally, like everyone's always like, oh shit, I love your like I'm the only person there with tattoos. I'm the only American that works there. Like, and I get a lot of compliments on my tattoos and stuff, and they're like, what are you? And I'm like, I'm one of the sommeliers. And they're like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, like it's crazy that like I could do this and like look cool too. Like, it's just, there's a lot of that like judgment there, which I fucking love it. I don't care. I love attention. I love all of it, good, bad. I don't give a fuck what it is. If people are like, oh, wow, I can't believe you're a Som, like you are so tatted, and I'm like, oh, thank you for being ignorant. Like, not only do you think I'm tatted, you recognize my career. Like,
do you feel like? I feel like potentially that, I mean, that's something that kind of been listening, just even hearing, because obviously Dewey doesn't post the videos, and I think the 2 chats you've done with him have not been video anyway. But that was something that kind of drew me toward you, and in the first chat you guys had way back when you guys went to that like podcast fucking festival thing, whatever the fuck it was that like, it just seems like you're unafraid of challenge and challenging yourself and finding yourself in any of these things that you put yourself in because of the fuck it. It interests me. I just want to see what's on the other side of it, and how, not necessarily maybe how it'll change you, but just what can I learn and what can I take from this and kind of just add that into my life skills, essentially.
I didn't even notice that people noticed that shit.
Well, like I said, I'm a door guy at a bar, and one of my attributes is sitting and just silence because I don't want to blow up my voice every night talking over people and the music. But it's just silently watching people and just kind of getting an idea of who they are when they don't realize they're being watched.
I mean, that's dope. Like, I honestly am so fucking, like, that just made my whole night that you even, like, gave me that perspective that people could possibly see that I just do things because I want the experience to do them without the fear of the repercussions of the failure. And I do it because what the fuck else am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna die. Like, we're all, like, I'm not afraid of dying. Like, and half the time I'm trying to do it myself. So, like, I'm either going to kill myself or I'm going to die of old age or a fucking car is going to hit. I've already been hit by a car. I've already broke my leg in half, fell out of a 2-story window, overcame homelessness. I'm a recovering addict in 2 years of recovery. Like, I have almost died so many fucking times that at this point, if I don't do everything I want to do, I'm a bitch, because like the universe or whatever the fuck may be in control, or just if it's chaos and there is nothing else, like whatever is happening, I am still alive after so many instances in which I should literally be dead and just be, a headstone somewhere, that I wouldn't be doing myself justice if I just fucking sat here and did nothing. Like, that would just not be cool. Like, you can, like, there's people who have one life or death experience and like become the Pope. Like, I don't fucking know. Like, there's people who have one, like, they get hit by a car and their life flashes before their eyes, and the next thing they're like, I don't know, like leading some sort of like government program. I have no idea. I have almost died times that I haven't like even counted, and I kind of just came to a point where it's like, bitch, like, especially after I got off drugs, like off crack and like PCP, like I was like, you had all these chances. Like, the next time a fucking car hits you, or the next time you relapse, or the next time like you get suicidal, like, you're it. Like, we're on like roll tape. Like, there is nothing fucking left for you. Like, you should probably like make the most of it. And that's why I live like I'm on borrowed time. And that's why I make such a big deal out of my birthday, because it's like, I survived another year. Like, I never planned to make it past 18, and after 18 I never planned to make it after 27. And to be, turning 29 tomorrow is quite literally crazy, because I was just in the hospital in December for hanging myself. Like, this shit is literally like, I could die any second. So when things come up, like, I was petrified to leave La Maison. I opened that restaurant. I was a huge part of it. I've been there for 3 years. It was a comfort zone, but I was just so ready. And there were so many signs in the company that I needed to get out. And I had such an imposter syndrome. I went on my first interview at Prevo and I was like, they hate me. I went on my second interview and I'm like, they hate me. I was called in for a third interview and I'm like, oh my God, they hate me. But in reality, like, okay, bitch is on a third interview. Something good is happening. And then I got the job. So it's like, I was so petrified and so unsure of myself and so sure I was going to fail. And I still went through with it because I was like, the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to have the same job I have right now. And I'm going to get denied by another job. Like, okay, it's going to hurt my ego, but what the fuck else am I going to do? Like,
it's interesting in hearing you talk just now that I don't want to call it your failure to plan. It's almost like you had a reverse life plan, whereas some people will go like, oh, well, in the next 5 years when I get to 30, I want to do this. When I get to this age, I want to do this. Yours was, I'm not going to live to 18. I'm not going to live to 25. I'm not going to. You'll be here at 30, so you got another year that the next big milestone. But it's interesting to hear someone almost say and hit these life milestone marks that most people look at and almost dread. Like, oh, when I'm 25, I'm supposed to be out of college and starting in my career and doing these things, these societal norms that are kind of heaped on us from a young age of this is like the track and path you're supposed to be on. And for you, it was almost this thing of like, well, I'm not going to get there, so fuck it. I'm not going to get there, so fuck it. It's what everyone does at the end of their life when they have wasted, decades upon decades of their lives. You basically went through your life the way most people are at the tail end of it. And I think that's really interesting to look at it from that perspective, that you essentially are almost Benjamin buttoning your life kind of, but in reverse.
No, I mean, that's a fucking wild way to think about it. So the way, like, I think that's a really, like, more understandable and, like, a better perspective. And, like, I'm so glad that you even have that perspective. This is why I love meeting new people, because, like, I'm pretty solitary. Like, ever since I got divorced, like, I've just been in my own little bubble, like, doing my own thing. And, like, I don't meet a lot of new people. And, like, I don't hear perspectives about what people think about me. I just kind of, like, exist. But it is true, because, like, I always think about, like, the way I always think about it, like, I feel like a zombie, right? So, like, my Wi-Fi name is Dead Girl. My alarm to wake me up in the morning is Living Dead Girl by Rob Zombie. Like, everything I feel like is I feel like I'm not dead and, like, I'm dead inside. That's when I'm depressed. Like, we all know what it feels like to be dead inside. But I feel like I'm just dead walking amongst living, because, like, any moment I could drop dead. And I know, like, that could be like a paranoid state to live in, which is why I have anxiety meds and I have anxiety, and I have antipsychotics to keep me, like, level so I don't go in this craziness. But that is my, like way I live. I live like any moment I could, like, drop dead. Like, so I'm gonna go for that job interview, or I'm gonna go buy that outfit. I'm gonna get those concert tickets. Like, I'm gonna jump in the mosh pit. Like, whatever it is, like, I'm gonna go bungee jumping. Like, I'm supposed to go skydiving in a couple weeks, because fuck it, what's gonna happen? Either the parachute doesn't open and I die, or I just keep not dying. Like, there's only two options. And I feel like people make life really complicated, where it's like, well, what if we die? And I'm like, well, what if? Like, nothing is going to happen. People are going to be sad. People are going to move on. Like, your Facebook is going to have a bunch of people from your high school saying RIP who are bullies. Like, nothing is going to change. It's going to be the same. So you might as well, it sounds so cheesy to say live like you're dying, but you are going to die. So just do whatever the fuck you want and deal with it.
I think you and I have essentially come to the same conclusion in completely different ways. I grew up with a lot of death surrounding me, between, losing a brother when I was 2, and I don't have any recollection or memories of him at all. But then even it's like my grandfather, like, through cancer, my grandmother, like, on my dad's side, all, like, these other people, like, I just lost, sort of close friend that I was a close friend, and I haven't talked to him in like 10 years. As funny enough, you said, like, Facebook friends. And that one's kind of been interesting to me, because I'm like, you were a big part of my life for a little bit, and I haven't talked to you in 10 years, and I feel like I don't know who you are anymore, or were. Yeah. And so it just becomes this thing, like, when I started going to therapy, and, I would talk at my therapist, essentially. I remember at one point toward the end of throughout the session, it was just like, well, what happened to that? How did that relationship resolve? Oh, that person's dead. Or what happened to this? Oh, they're dead. And then it was this kind of light bulb moment for them to go, well, it sounds like you're one of the few people that you're constantly around that just understands that death is going to happen. And so instead of people, like, pushing it away and being like, well, death will happen when I'm like 70. It's like, no, like, you realize, like, it could happen at any point, because you've seen people die from so many different random things that you understand that, like, life is finite. It does have an ending. And it was a weird thing to have someone say that, because I was like, well, yeah, no shit.
Yeah, well, like, I was saying that, and I'm just like, oh, I empathize, like, and I'm sorry you've lost so many people, but I also, like, you obviously are handling it fine, but, like, I empathize, because that's kind of the same situation with me. Like, I've struggled with death just due to my mental illness and my disorder, but, like, when I was growing up, the only thing I've ever known is same thing with losing my family members. Like, everybody has died because of cancer, or, everybody I used to hang out with has OD'd and died. Like, there is no one left. Like, I remember my dad would tell me, when he started trying to get sober, that he went to, like, some meeting, and the counselor was like, you're going to end up dead or in jail. That's it. Like, sober, dead, or in jail. You have no fucking other option. And I was still high at the time, and I was like, that's so stupid. That's stupid. I can manage. And then it really came to a point where, like, it really started to feel like flies dropping. Like, this person got shot. This person died by suicide. This person OD'd. This person OD'd. And it got down to one day when I remember getting the call that, like, my literal last friend in the friend group had just ran his car into a pole because he was so high and needed to, like, and couldn't function. And that he got arrested and was put in jail. And then I was alone. And I remember walking like 5 miles to my parents' house and breaking into their house and sitting at the kitchen table waiting for them to get home to tell them like that I had no one else because everybody I knew was dead. And that's kind of like, it's traumatizing, but it's also like, I don't take shit for granted anymore, like at all, you know, and people who are kind of disassociated from death, like I think it's beautiful, you know, like I have little siblings. I try to protect them as much as I can. I don't want them to go through what I went through, but I want them to know like what is real and what's not without them being traumatized, you know. So would I wish it upon anyone like you or myself? No, but I'm thankful I have it because I'm going to be able to deal with a lot more shit, you know, that life throws at me the older I get. And then when I do start getting closer to potentially like my actual dying, my time of like natural death, like I'm not going to be scared. I'm just going to be ready.
You mentioned something in it, and potentially those that are watching and or listening and then want to go back and watch this after the fact, potentially saw, because I'm really bad at when I have a thought, I'll kind of do one of these and I'm trying to think my way through what I'm thinking, but then get right back into listening to what you're saying. So this is we're kind of in a really deep part of the conversation, hence why, you know, I call it Brewtally Speaking, because essentially strangers and I have really fucking intense conversations sometimes. There is something, as you were talking about, you know, going through what you've gone through in the last, very recently, like in December and stuff like that, with your suicide attempt and all that. It does make me wonder, and I don't know if, forgive maybe the insensitive way of talking about this, but I'm still kind of figuring out how to ask the question. It seems like though you are someone, like I said earlier, that just takes control of your life. Do you feel that is kind of even the case with how you want to potentially, like when you had those thoughts that you wanted to control, or potentially even going, well, I lived. That's another thing now that I can experience that not many people can, and I can use it as a learning thing and what it teaches me personally and all those kind of things. I don't, like I said, I don't think the question is fully formed, but those are kind of the two
I would know, but
talking.
I love what you're asking. So wait, like taking control of my life as in like when I do have the suicidal ideations, like is that me taking control of my literal life?
That you want control of how even in death you go.
Oh my God! Well,
I was really nervous to ask this question because I was hoping that you weren't going to get pissed, but
stop. I've been trying to kill myself since I was 12. It's fine. So I actually talk to my therapist about this sometimes because it is true. Like, so, like when I do have suicidal ideations, and like I don't want to go into them too deeply because I don't really want to trigger anyone, but like when I do have suicidal ideations, like, and it's to the point where I'm going to do it, like I get depressed and I have suicidal ideations, but I don't want to act on it. But like there are points when I get too manic or too depressed that I can't control it anymore. And they always involve some sort of control. They always involve letters. They always involve music playing. They always involved a very choreographed, theatrical way in which someone would find me. Like, it's always about control and about how, you know, this is how I want the first person to find me. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to show them that this is what life is. And this is what I have endured. And this is, you know, this is how you're going to remember me because, you know, I have no other choice. But that's like the wiring in my brain that's sick, like that isn't me. So I'll get into this mindset and I'll like plan this whole thing and it'll be all fucking dramatic and horrible. And then usually I will call a hotline or I will admit myself to a hospital so that they can take care of me, which is what happened that evening. I mean, after I attempted, I fell, called my friend, like he got me down, he brought me to the hospital. But usually I have like a lifeline I can call. But I feel like it can be a sense of control, but it's also dangerous for me to say like, oh, I'm in control, because I'm not. It's this part of the brain that it's this part of my brain that takes over, like, and I disassociate, you know, like I remember like a lot of times that were like pre-attempts, you know, I would lose feeling in my hands and my arms and my legs, and I would like be watching myself, and it kind of looks like I'm playing COD because like I can see it, but I don't feel it, and it just feels like my hands are doing things. So I'll disassociate and I'll hurt myself in ways that I'm trying to stop myself, but I literally can't control my body, which is a really weird thing to explain, but like that's a part of mental illness is like your brain will detach itself from its body and just start hurting itself. Like in the like not in like a lot of movies, but like some movies portray it like if you are really sick, like it's not that far off when like you lose control of your body and you just start hurting yourself. Like, and it's really scary. So like I think it is a sense of like if I do go out, I want everybody to know that, you know, this is real and this happens, and I've been preaching about it for 20 fucking years, and if I do die by suicide, you know, which is always a potential thing because I have bipolar disorder, you know, it fucking happened. But my biggest thing is telling people to just call a fucking hotline and admit themselves to a hospital. Like, it sucks. The socks are so uncomfortable, but you make friends. Like, I made friends in December. I met this girl. She was super sweet, and we hung out for a little bit, and then we colored in coloring books. And, you know, our system sucks, and the hospitals are horrible, and they treat you like shit, but I'd rather be in a hospital with ugly scrubs on than be dead and not be, you know, on this podcast or having dinner with my baby sister tonight, you know?
I think it's just one of those where, you know, kind of bringing it to music a little bit. It's hard when the narrative seemingly over the last, I'll say 10 years has been, we need to talk about this. We need to talk about it. And you have like mental health awareness and all these things, but it just feels, and like I'm saying, kind of in music at times, it's, you know, you go to some of these shows and these bands, you know, open themselves up, and then all of a sudden it seems like this marketing tool now where it's like, do you really feel this way? Or are you just like, oh, if I say like, oh, I suffer too and I struggle too, you're just doing it because you want the acceptance of, I mean, I guess it's kind of anybody really, but you're just trying to cash in on sort of a trend. And I kind of, it sounds so shitty to look at things and just assume everyone's trying to get over on people or use these things. But unfortunately, I feel like in a lot of industries, that's kind of how it is. I mean, there's an old joke from Chris Rock from like when I was in middle school on his Bigger and Blacker special. And he was like, they're never going to cure AIDS, ever. They're going to figure out a way to make you live with it. We can't even cure athlete's foot. We're going to get to a point in time where you're going to be at your job, and then Steve won't be there one day, and you'll be like, Steve, where were you? Oh, my AIDS was acting up again. I had an AIDS flare up, so sorry. I sprayed some Robitussin, or drank some Robitussin though, and I'm fine now. And it was one of those that it's like, I thought it was funny just because of how he set up the joke, but as I kept getting older, I was like, fuck, man, you're right. We can't cure half of the like shit that we should be able to. And there is no money in a cure. There's a money in keeping people sick and making them keep going back for medicine, back for whatever. And it's just a fucking shit cycle. And that's the part that gets a little bit frustrating is when you hear of people who are actually advocating for things they're going through, it seems like, you know, they're quieted or they're treated with, well, you can't trust them because they're crazy or these things. And it's like, well, then who the fuck can you trust? Someone who actually went through something? Because typically if you've gone through something enough times, usually that's what makes you an expert in something.
I mean, that touches on a million subjects, right? It's like there's people who want to like fit in, but like, you know, I don't know. Like, I do know that people will like say, you know, I think my silliest example is emotional support animals. Like, I have two amazing fucking little lap dogs, and I would love to register them as an emotional support animal so I can go into restaurants and go on planes and stuff. But like, that takes away from actual emotional response animals that help people with real illnesses, mental illnesses, and physical disabilities. So like, that's like my like most vanilla like idea of people jumping on this bandwagon of like being sick and wanting to be sick, or like people saying, oh, I have anxiety. But also there's another side of it. Like, I think we're all fucked up. Like, we're pretty, like, I think everybody has anxiety. I just think we're learning how to announce what we're feeling now. Like, I don't think everybody, you know, is depressed. I don't think everybody has crippling anxiety, you know, but I do think at least our generation, like, we have grown up with parents and grandparents who raised us in really, really abusive ways because that's just how it was done back then. So I really think everyone's fucked up. And yeah, there are going to be people that jump on the bandwagon or like they want to be sick to be sick. Like, I guess if that makes you feel better, whatever doesn't hurt anyone else doesn't hurt me. But like, I honestly just think we're all pretty fucked up because we were all raised pretty fucked up. And the people who aren't, like me and my therapist were talking today at therapy, and he was like, you do know, like, there are people who process thoughts normally without trauma, like, affecting their thought process. And I was like, who the fuck are these people and where are they? Like, I've never met one, and I was like, do you think, like, it might be? He's like, no, anyone that you're related to, all fucked up. And I was like, okay. I was like, I was just gonna make a guess. He was like, everyone in your family's fucked up. Like, just stop. But I don't know. Like, I don't know. I feel like it is marketable. You know, I think it's some bullshit when I see these pills being sold. It's like, oh, they will make you feel serotonin. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, it's just a little silk pill with like fish oil in it. Like, the only way to feel serotonin is to get happy or fucking straight to the veins. Like, you got very limited options in this shitty world to feel serotonin. You know, go fall in love or like do some heroin. Like, it's very few and far between to find pure serotonin in this world. So, like, you get these marketing people who are making money off of people that just want to feel
trying
better.
to live.
Yeah, like anti-anxiety things, like prescription pills. Like, I advocate for psychedelic medicine and for cannabis because shrooms and acid have helped me way more than any antidepressant has. I specifically went off antidepressants because I was microdosing shrooms. You know, the only reason I'm on anti-anxiety meds is because I can't go off of them because I'll be unfunctionable with my paranoia, you know. But I slowly went from being on 5 different pills a day to being on 2 once a day, like by microdosing shrooms, making sure I smoke every day, like cannabis, you know. So there's so many different like factors having to do with especially this wave of understanding of mental illness, because you know for a fact those pharmaceutical companies are jumping the fuck on it so they can make as much money as they can. It's a whole fucked up situation. There's us who are like super sick and like need some fucking antipsychotics, and then there's all these companies that are telling everyone else they're sick just to make some money. It's a fucked up dystopia world.
Yeah, it's funny. So like I was kind of saying earlier, like I started smoking probably in the last like 3 years, cannabis, and was one of those things where like I remember going out probably a good 4 or 5 years ago out to Seattle, or actually Portland, when they were like one of the first states that legalized cannabis. And it was so weird, this stigma that I had to like get over in my head that I wasn't doing something wrong by going to a dispensary. Like it was, and like that was
so wrong. Why?
And that was the weird thing is like as I was walking in, I like was nervous and I was like, oh my god, like and then I had this like clear, I had this like clear moment in my head though for a minute where I was like, why do I feel this way? Like I feel this way because of what society has made me think that weed is, which is a horrible fucking thing. Like, look at all the PSAs they take out about like, oh, well, Sally can't hear you because all she does is sit on a couch all day. Oh no. Oh darn.
Bro, I hate that commercial. That bitch was on dope. Like, weed does not make you flat like a pancake like that. That's what dope does.
So
it is stupid. It's silly. I was sitting in front of Met yesterday smoking a joint, and I was looking around like I was gonna get arrested. Like, I don't know. I mean, but it's also, I mean, weed being legalized is such a difficult subject because it's so like, it's very much like a white privilege to very easily be very comfortable with marijuana in public. So it's very upsetting that like, you know, I could sit in front of the Met and like smoke a joint and be like, oh, I'm scared, but then be like, oh, like what's gonna really happen to me? So it's just really upsetting, you know, that we have this perspective as white people that, you know, oh, it's all fun and playful now, and like people of color are still locked up in jail for a fucking eighth. You know, I think it's important to bring attention to that, and whenever to talk about the legalization of cannabis, to make like that a very clear statement that it's important to realize that, you know, as silly and as shitty as it is to like be afraid to like smoke a joint in front of the Met, you know, it is still a real fear for people of color because cops will still use it as an excuse, even though it's legal, because they're fucking pigs, and we all know that. But I think it's fair to make that point. But I think it's like it's all propaganda, right? You were conditioned to think that weed was this horrible thing that was gonna ruin your family, like that's like this whole discrepancy between like wine moms and weed moms. I'm on TikTok every single fucking day, every minute of every day that I'm not at work. And there's like wine moms, which I don't judge either. I don't give a fuck. Like if I'm going to a soccer game with a bunch of screaming 8-year-olds, I'll drink a bottle of wine there. I don't give a fuck. I won't even put it in a cooler. Like I'll just drink it there as long as the cops don't see my bottle. Like, but I'll also smoke a joint before I go. But there's like this funny debate between what's worse, a wine mom or a weed mom. And I'm like, dude, we're all just trying to chill the fuck out. Like, as long as you're not driving around with like 8 kids in your minivan, shit faced, like, or stoned, I think everything is fine. I think we're all just trying to chill the fuck out.
Yeah, that's definitely where my shit started with weed. Was more, I have a very active mind. Like there would be times if I woke up to the bathroom, like I needed my phone so I could like see, like so I didn't run into shit.
Yeah.
But then I'd have to just essentially not turn my phone off from airplane mode so I wouldn't like go on an app or something. Because as soon as I see something, boom, now my mind's going. I'm like, oh, okay.
Like, oh, yep, start clicking.
So then it became this thing where I was like, oh, weed like has been one of the few things I found that like allows me to be like literally centered and kind of in the moment, present in the moment, and helps me sleep very well. Like, through the night, not waking up randomly, not tossing and turning, like just good sleep. And it's one of those where I'm like, why is this bad? Like, why is it? And the stigma again, like, it's like, why is it that I could go and spend all my money on like 17 of these and drink all of them in a day, and as long as I fucking show up to work the next day, like it's fine. Yeah. But God forbid I smoke weed to go to bed at night for like 45 minutes and something happens and I get drug tested, and it's like, well, now you're fired, or probably not anymore. But still one of those things that the stigma is still there, that it's like, well, you're doing something wrong. And it's like, why is one which categorically has been shown to have way better effects on your body? And actually, I'll say this, the more I smoke, the less I want to drink, typically.
Oh my God, that's so fucking true. Like, I also started smoking recently. Like, when I got off hard drugs, like, I had never really, like, smoked weed or cannabis. I just went straight to bad drugs because I'm a fucking idiot. So I went backwards, and I smoked weed, and I didn't like it at first because I was like, this is nothing like crack. But then I was like, I got, a couple years on me, and then I was like, okay, like maybe I can actually try it. And I really enjoyed how much it chilled me out, and it let me be in the present, and it let me relax. And like my therapist supports me smoking it. Like he's like, if it helps you, it fucking helps you. And, the reason there's a stigma is, the reason alcohol is available and there's no stigma, and the reason weed is still illegal in some places and there is a stigma, is because of most things, money and racism. Like, that's just what it is. And unfortunately, cannabis is on, fortunately, it's on a road upwards, but unfortunately, it's still going to take a while. And that's like even way behind psychedelics, which I'm on the fucking bandwagon 30 years in advance, like, because this shit is going to be where cannabis is going to be in 30 years, where they're trying to legalize shrooms and having dispensaries and having growers and foragers for psilocybin, and I know it's going to get there. We're just so fucking stupid as a society that the people who are in control are just like, it's not clicking. They're racist and they want money. Like, and we really just need to have cannabis and shrooms legal, everyone out of jail, and I think everyone just needs to get naked. Like, that's just do a bunch of drugs and get naked.
It's so funny. A lot of, like, when I had Joanna Angel on a while ago to promote her book that she had written, and I guess I was one of the first people. I was one of the first people, I guess, to.
Erotica? I have a story in that one.
It's whatever her newest book was called.
Her newest one? Oh, that's
yeah.
A good one.
So it was funny though, because she was like, "Oh, you read it?" And I was like, "I think I have like 20 pages total between the way you're alternating the stories, like choose your own adventure style." I was like, "I think I basically have like 20 some odd pages of the last story to go through or whatever." And then so she started asking me all these questions, and I was like, "Well, it's funny. it reminds me of like one of my first jobs out of high school. Like my second job I'd ever had was working at a strip club. And then she was like, well, what'd you do? I was like, I worked at Deja Vu as a door guy, and then as the guy who basically just puts pop into your cup and takes money.
Our doorman.
And so I made the comment, I go, it's so funny though, because like the main character, the way she gets into it, and a lot of the things that she experienced were the same things I experienced as a guy, like that wasn't stripping, but like things I noticed, like, you know, the girls actually typically looking out for one another and giving you tips. And like, I will say that is one of the few jobs, and I'm kind of appreciative of it, having had it so young, because it taught me so many things. It taught me how to hustle and how to pay attention, but it also taught me that like at such a young age, when so many of us are so worried about, you know, sex and how we look and sexuality and all that kind of stuff, I was just like, you know, when you go to work every day and see the girl that everyone is trying to like tip to try to fuck or whatever, and then she has diarrhea and she's like literally just got done shitting her pants, clogged the toilet, says, hey, I need you to unclog that, and then literally has dudes throwing 10s and 20s at her asshole that she just projectile shit out of. And you're like, if you only knew. Like, to me, like, I was like, it's so crazy to see that. And then secondly, to just see all kinds of women of all different shapes, sizes, ethnicities, whatever, and just find beauty in everybody. That, like,
I think that's a really cool perspective to have as a doorman. And I have always believed that every DJ and doorman has that perspective, and I have never been proven otherwise. And I was a dancer for a very, very long time. And I mean, it's true, because I mean, as a perspective of a dancer, like, you are literally looking out for yourself and your girls, and that's it, because everyone else is going to hurt you. Everyone else is out to get you. Everyone else is out to hustle you. Like, everyone out is out to, you know, use you for the least amount of money as possible. So I think it's super cool that you, as a doorman, were able to even have that perspective and that insight that affected you, and also realizing, like, it is really funny when you realize we're just humans who shit, but we also get sexualized and we can make money off of it. You know, that's a fucking cool experience to have.
And at 18 too. It was very weird.
Oh God, 18, you're probably like, I work at the strip club.
No. The weirdest part is when I would get out after closing, and we have a store out here that's open 24 hours, 7 days a week, other than Christmas. And when you work a second or a third shift job like that, like, you exist kind of as a vampire and go do things as soon as you get out. And it would be very weird where, you know, I'd get tipped out or I'd make my money, whatever, and then I'd go like buy something from the grocery store, and, you know, because the old lady likes getting up and working at 5 o'clock in the morning to start like the first shift there, like paying with everything mostly in ones. And I'm like, and then, like, you know, she's kind of like looking at one or unfolding it a little bit more, and I'm like, I feel kind of weird about this. Like, maybe I should have, like, I don't know, put my money in a bank or something first and used a debit card, but cash is all I had. But like, it just was very funny. Like, you know, just the duality of like, I have a job and this is what I do, but then this almost like secret life. And that was kind of the thing I liked about Joanna's book, was like, it does feel like a secret life, because like, unless you're in it, and like, I wasn't in it for very long, it was like a year, but it's like, I was in it at such a time that kind of not enforced, but kind of taught me a lot of things that I still hold value in now. Like, it's funny, like, I grew up mostly with my mom because my dad worked a second and third shift job, so I was always around women. And then it's like, even now with my wife, like, everyone jokes I'm basically one of the women. Like, when it's like, oh, it's a girls trip plus John, that is things like that it's like, I feel like working in an environment like that, like, didn't feel weird, because it's like, well, I'm used to being around women. Like, and why, and like, not being a shitty dude is not hard.
No, it's not difficult. The bar is just 6 feet under because of the patriarchy and how long we've had to deal with some stupid bullshit. But it is true. It's like an underground world. It's like a different life, especially like when people try to joke about it or talk about it, or whether it be dancing or sex working or anything like that. Like, people really don't understand that it is a entirely different world with entirely different etiquette and completely different rules. And it's interesting to have been a part of it. It's interesting, you know, to sometimes still be a part of it. And I fucking love it. I think it's great. I think I don't know. I think it's the sexiest thing ever. I'm super proud to have been a sex worker, and I just think it's fucking I think it's one of the most respectable jobs because you have to have fucking balls to do it. You have to have confidence to do it. You have to have business savvy to do it. And you have to be able to fight for yourself, literally, physically, and emotionally to be able to do it. So
I would almost say, you know, the funny thing is, and I think, again, Joanna's book did a really great job of showcasing this, but not really outwardly saying it, if that makes any sense. But it was, you know, it's one of the oldest professions in life. But take away the stigmatization of it, of like, well, it's sex work and so forth. Look at it like this. Anything, like any job you've ever had where you had to sell something, everyone always goes, well, you got to sell yourself. So in essence, the way I've always looked at it is you have to be so confident who you fucking are, because that's all you literally have is you. You have nothing else to hide. You have nothing else to offer, which sounds terrible when I say it like that, but it's like, if you are able to sell yourself like that and people like you and people want it, then it's like, I feel like there's something magical about that, because it's like, you don't need anything else. You don't need any, you don't have to, I don't know. There's just something magical about it, and so freeing, I feel like, because it's like, you literally are selling yourself. You have people wanting your product, your brand, which is you. And I feel like that's so empowering when I think about it. And I know, like, I'm too much. Actually, I always think this is a funny thing too, that we say like, oh, this so and so's a pussy, as a term of, like, a derogatory term, when it's like, yeah, man, I don't know.
Put out a baby.
I was gonna say, what, I forget who said it, but someone was like, pussies can take, like, you watch porn, pussies take fucking, like, they get abused all the time and can just, like, and they still look great shortly thereafter. So, like, hell yeah, if I'm a fucking pussy, whatever, like, it can take a beating and come back, like, cool. That's what you're saying about me. But it's one of those things that I feel like, you know, I see all these people who shit on people who do, like, OnlyFans or whatever, or like the girl who was selling her jarred farts, and I was like, that ain't my thing, but, like, kudos if you're pulling in tens of thousands of dollars a month and you're able to, like, live a life. Fuck it, like, because do you?
And that's like any woman, you know, or when we're like all men, and men are like, not the only men who say not all men are the men who are doing it, right? So, like, you can see a girl sell her jar of farts for $10,000 and be like, not my thing, but girl, make your fucking bag, you know? And I think that's what it's about. Like, if it's not your thing, just shut up and move on. Like,
we don't live in that world anymore.
Just shut the fuck up and move on. Like, it's not that difficult. Like, I have a fucking OnlyFans, and do I post? Like, I try to post every week, but I don't. But do I post some crazy, like, fun shit on there? Yeah, and it's cool and it's fun. And if my boss sat me down and was like, "Do you have an OnlyFans?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you don't." Like, it's like,
I feel like everyone's got one now.
It's just silly. I mean, I've said it on other podcasts. It's a little, OnlyFans kind of pisses me off a little bit, because, like, I used to get, like, so much hate mail and so much, like, really bad stalkers and, like, really mean fucking people because I was a sex worker. But now, since OnlyFans and the pandemic, like, it became, like, trendy to be a sex worker, which I love, and I want to keep going, and I want the positivity to keep going. But, like, I also sit back sometimes as, like, an old, like, grumpy past porn star, and I'm like, fuck, it's easy now. Like, you can really, like, just make a fucking OnlyFans now, instead of, like, flying to some sketchy house in, like, Miami and shooting a porno. Like, it's fucking good for them, but, like, fuck, like, we ran so you can watch. I love it. I have one. I love all my girls that have it. I always support my girls that have it and post their, like, it's fun, you know. And anybody who looks at it any other way, like, I'm sorry, vanilla ass motherfuckers. Like, we all know you're consuming something on the side. At least be real about it, or just don't say anything.
Well, I feel like that's the kind of the crazier thing that I've noticed. I feel like it has to be pretty obvious practice at this point, and people can see it. But I feel like the interesting thing that I find is, if you have a notable name behind you, it's the paid promotion of somebody else. And it's not really any different than people who shame others for buying followers and shit like that or whatever. But it's like, like I saw the other day, Riley Reid posted that, something about working with Sophie D, but like, if you sign up for her OnlyFans and use then all this kind of shit, I was like, it's cool that I see people kind of promoting each other, but I also feel like there's a back end deal where it's like, okay, if you give me a shout out on your thing, then I'll pay you X amount or da 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 da. There's typically I've found no one does anything for free. But it is one of those things like I've noticed that where it seems like that is almost the buying likes and followers and so forth indirectly, like on normal social media, it seems.
Probably. I don't know. I usually just drink a couple bottles of champagne and take a bunch of naked pictures and post them. Like, I don't know what anyone else is doing. I just mind my own fucking business and make like $30 a week.
Hey, there's a couple beers at least at your or a dinner at the bar next to your house.
Like, I just post naked pictures for funsies and for some extra cash for drinks.
It's funny. I had someone reach out to me. Someone awkwardly said to me once, they were like, I bet you look fun naked. I was like, not really. It's a hot mess. No dude looks hot naked for the most part. It looks like your shit's melting off your body.
You look hot naked.
But it was very funny because the person said it to me in front of my wife, and I was like, that's weird.
Am I allowed to smoke on camera?
I don't give a shit.
Oh, okay. I don't
know. But it was one of those things where I kind of laughed because I was like, someone was like, oh, someone had once said something to me. They're like, oh, you seem like the kind of guy that would like send dirty photos. And I was like, no. Yeah. I go, you know why? I go, it's a shame on my end. I go, because I have tattoos that no one will have. And they're all like very low, like below my waist. So if I were to ever deny like the cringy shit I would post or send or something like that, there's no way someone would be like, oh, so someone else happens to have that tattoo like right on the other side of their thighs. And they'd be like, yep, that's not me.
So no nudes for you. I think that's what I thought was funny. It was like, at least with me, like I don't give a shit if I send nudes because like no one ever asks for them because I don't date men and like women don't ask for them because they're not men. No offense, but they don't. We send them willingly to women when we curate them beautifully because we love women. But no one ever asks for them. But if I was to send nudes, I would just be like, okay, because whatever I send, you can just Google and find the same thing that probably looks 5 years younger. Like, it probably looks better at 5 years younger and a little more tan and skinnier. So, like, I'll send whatever nude that fucking matters because I have Googled myself and looked at the images and I'm just like, oh, fuck. Whatever I send is just going to look like 30 years old. So,
it's so weird.
Like, dudes have, like, Snapchatted me, like, send me nudes, and I, like, will send them a Google image, and they're like, oh, my God. And I'm like, you literally could've just Googled that. They'll be like, send me $20, I'll send you something, and I'll just send them a Google image. I'm like, wow. Like, I look better in those pictures. But that's why I don't give a fuck about sending nudes. Like, what's going to happen? Like, they're going to send it to someone and be like, this is Rachel, she's naked. And we're like, yeah, like, her pastor saw her naked. Like, we've covered all the bases here. Jesus knows. Okay.
I think that was something that was really interesting the other day. And I completely, like, it was weird because I was like, the thread was kind of out of order on Twitter. So I was like, I feel like I missed something here. And then I had to go back through and kind of piece it together. But like it was weird because like Riley reposted a photo and it was just like her hand over her boob and then basically like nipple in between her hand. And then I looked at the comments because something I find absolutely amusing is just reading comments on porn and stuff because I just think it's very amusing to me. Yeah. And it was just, oh my God, you're pregnant. Congrats. Da, 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 da. And then it was like her post, like probably 20, 30 minutes later is like, I'm 30. My metabolism slowed down. I gained weight. I used to be 100 pounds. Now I'm 130. So some of the weight went to my tits and ass. Sorry. That's what happened. And I was just like, yeah, girl. And like, I almost wanted to like retweet and be like, yeah, girl, same. I hit 30. And like, I can show you a photo of me from like 12, 15 years ago where it's like, I was like barely like probably 112 pounds. And now I got 100 pounds on that, but I'm like, I feel healthier and all that kind of shit. But it's one of those where I was just like, girl, I feel that. Like, dude, absolutely preach.
I feel it too. I fucking, after I like broke my leg and I like wasn't able to move for a little bit, and then especially getting off drugs, because in case you were wondering, PCP and crack keep you super skinny. I gained a fuck ton of weight. I weigh like 185 pounds now. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And I was like, I really hated myself for a long time. And I like had an eating disorder for a little bit. And I was like dealing with that because I was just so angry that this was my body. And then I realized like, this is like my body healthy. Like this is my body, no drugs. This is my body eating normally, drinking water. Like, and it was like super uncomfortable at first. And like, I'm still uncomfortable about it, but I try not to be, you know, because it's like the same thing with like my nudes. Like whatever, like this is what I look like now. I know what I looked like before. Like I got some scars from some surgeries. I got hit by a yellow cab. Like I got some fucking miles on it, but still works. Still works.
I think that was something that I came to the realization, and again, kind of like I said, hanging out with my wife as much as I do, and all of our friends and just women in general for so long. I had this like, excuse me, I had this moment like probably 2 years ago, and I was like, I hit the weight that I always said, like, man, if I ever got to that weight at my size, like that's not, I'm fat. And then I got to that weight, and I was like, started feeling bad. And then it's like, you know, like with, like I said, tattoos like all over my chest and stuff. Like I had, you know, the people always say, don't get one on your stomach, because then like if you really get bigger, it'll stretch. And so it was one of those like where I was looking at it and I saw I had some stretch marks, and I was like, oh fuck, I like just kept looking at myself in the mirror. I was like, how did you let yourself get this way? Like it's not okay. And da 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 da. And then I had a weird like battle with myself where I'm like, but there's literally a photo that I carry around, and I'm like, that wasn't healthy either. And like I feel better about myself, but at one point all I wanted to do was gain weight because I couldn't. And then I kind of had more of an epiphany as more time went on, and I kind of thought about it more, and I was just like, look, either I have to be okay with how I look and just own it, because if I'm not willing to change something, then I'm not going to sit here and keep going, well, I don't like how I look. Cool, what are you doing to change yourself about it? Or how are you trying to make yourself better? I'm fucking not. Okay, so then there you go. Either stop making excuses or own it. And I'm kind of at the point where it's like baby steps to doing things, but I think that's it's been the weird thing, and not something I've really, actually, I don't think I've ever said that on the podcast, where I'm like, yeah, man, like guys kind of go through this shit too, and probably don't vocalize it as much, but because it's embarrassing, the stigma of it, I guess. But it's one of those things. Like I remember telling my wife, because she was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I just feel bad and like depressed because I have like stretch marks. And she was like, so do I. And she goes, I had them like on like under my tits because like they're big and I'm getting older. And then we said something to like a friend, and then she's like, oh, I got them too. And then like all the girls are like, oh, I got them too. And they're like, welcome to the club. Yeah. And then I didn't feel so bad, because it was one of those things where I was like, oh, like again, everyone's kind of going through it. We don't talk about it because we're afraid of the supposed shame that we're going to go through. But I think in the end, we tend to find that we're more alike than we're not. It's like the Starbelly Sneeches.
I think that's like a huge duality between men and women, you know, like it's very different, but very much the same. You know, we're reminded from the moment we understand what stretch marks are and being skinny is, we are reminded to always be skinny, to never get stretch marks, and to always have smooth skin, and to always look like a fucking baby. Like that is what is pounded into our heads since like we even understand anything, you know. And men, like you assume that, but like I feel like you don't get the outlet to talk about it, because it's not like we have like, we'll talk to other girlfriends and be like, I have stretch marks, like I'm upset about it. And then your girlfriends will make you feel better and make you realize that you're normal. Like, I don't know any dude that's gone up to their friends and been like, bro, like I have these stretch marks, like I'm really fucking worried. Like, I don't know if y'all do that, but it must be, you know, I'm not saying it's more difficult, less difficult, whatever it is, it's your own, you know, struggle you have to deal with, you know. Mm-hmm. I use the word struggle lightly when I speak about men, but that's because I'm a misandrist. No, but I think it's a really difficult struggle, because you can't really, men, like that's a huge thing with men, is not to vocalize your emotions, right? You're supposed to be stoic and have this shit together all the time. And like, I also think that's stupid. Like, absolutely nobody has their shit together. Like, I would rather a dude be like, I feel like shit, my body looks like shit, like I don't know what to do, like how do we fix this? You know, something like that, you know, like I have one dude best friend, and like, he'll say things like that. He'll come to me when like he needs to like vent some things that are really difficult to vent to men. And it's kind of upsetting, you know, I must be fucking lonely to deal with something like that, you know, and like the whole pressure of like having to be a manly man. Like,
oh, I am not in any way, shape, or form. Like, I've been joking with people because we've been doing some house projects here, and so I had to call a friend to like redo our dining room floor because like I don't have saws, I don't have any of that shit. Like it just never been my thing. And someone was just like,
reason. That's what contractors are for.
Sure, but it was funny. Like I made the comment to someone, I was like, "Oh, I'd rather pay my friends who are skilled in these things," and da da da. And then someone's like, "Or you could just learn how to do it yourself. Like YouTube exists." And I was like, "No,
Why?
like because I don't have I." Okay, so I watch a YouTube video, and then I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't have that tool. I don't have that tool. I don't have that tool." And then they're like, "Yeah, well, then you
don't have to learn how to make a floor."
Well, and that was the thing is like in my head, I was like, cool. So you want me to go out and buy like saws so I can cut these pieces to length and then do this and do this and then hope that maybe I get my return of investment on it because I'm probably not doing anything with saws or like, it was funny. Like I also realized this is a very weird term. And I was like, all right. Like, and I asked the 3 guys that were working, like my friends that were working on my flooring as I was just stocking them with PBRs and shots of whiskey and pizza while they were working. And at one point, one of them hands me the piece of wood, and they're like, go cut this piece of wood. You need like a cunt hair taken off. And I was like, really? What the fuck kind of form of measurement is that? And then I was like, okay. I go, what is a cunt hair to you? And he was like, I don't know. It's probably like a 32nd of an inch. And then I was like, okay, you. And he goes, yeah, somewhere between like an 18th of an inch and a 32nd of an inch. And I was like, okay. So first of all, I don't really use forms of measurement like that at all. So I wouldn't have even started there.
Second of an inch is not even a real measurement. That's not real.
So it was one of those where I was just like, this is where like, again, just shit's so stupid because you're like, really? That's your form? Like, yeah. And then like the 3 of you are like, yeah, that sounds about right. And I'm like, no. As a person who doesn't do this shit, that does not sound right. No. And I'm still not going to go use that saw because I don't want to cut my hand.
No reason to learn how to build a floor. Like that's what Angie's List is for. Like, you saying that you want to pay your friends who have like the experience in doing it? I will pay anyone to do anything if I have the money, like because I'm not gonna fucking do it. Like that's why I don't go grocery shopping because I don't have to, you know. And I don't know if that comes from like survival mode and like having to literally like fucking beg for food when I was younger. But like, if I have the money, I will fucking pay someone to do it for me. I'm not learning how to do it. I have enough shit going on. I have to go to work and things like. If I need something done, like I have this carpet, I found this old Turkish rug in the trash in the East Village, and I could get a steamer and steam it myself and save like $300. I'm getting it cleaned by someone because I'm not going to clean a fucking carpet. I don't have to know how to do that. I live in New York City. Like someone can pick it up and I can pay them money to do it. So that's... Learning how to build a floor does not make you a man. Like
no, but it's very amusing to me that as someone who has always grown up and not been like I would say I'm a very effeminate man for the most part or guy. And it was funny. Like I was telling someone this story recently because someone was going through a breakup, a guy friend, and everyone was kind of giving him shit. And he's like, "Oh, I really liked her." And I was like, "I know, man. It sucks. I've been there." And everyone's like, oh, you know, typical guy thing, like, just, you know, get over it, whatever, da-da-da. And then someone was like, well, what, like, you said, like, you had something similar, like, what happened to you? And then I was like, oh, I had a girl, like, I was dating, and, like, I was always kind of more of the needy, latchy kind of person. And so, like, I just with this person, I was like, I'm not going to do all the things I typically would do. And then in turn, ironically, she ended up kind of doing all the things I typically do. So I was like, oh, my God, this is awesome. But I remember when we were kind of like breaking up, I remember saying something to her, and I go, the first night we had sex was like so fucking magical. Like you can't tell me like that's just nothing. And then she goes, or that we're just great at fucking. And I was like, like, and I remember going like, my feelings were so hurt that she said that because I was like, no, there was more than just that. And I was like, and for you just to say like, no, it was just sex and we're good at it. And I was just like, but there was a connection and I felt it. And like, you know, that's why it was so special and all this kind of shit. And then they were just like, yeah, that's really lame. And I was like, no, like, I believe in
lame. You felt a literal, like, cosmic connection and this person did not. And when it's not reciprocated, that is painful.
But it was weird because that was, again, a reminder of like how I know I'm in touch with my feelings on shit like that. And a lot of guys, when we talk about things like this, it's like, no, that's not how they see things either. So it is kind of weird that it's like most of my life being a guy or being around men and stuff like that. It's always like when I say things, I kind of realize that it is not a norm. But I did have.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Bless you. I did kind of have an epiphany a while ago where I was like, I almost feel like it'd be better to grow up now as a young person, because I feel like so many people are more open about talking about who they are, the experiences and what they feel and things like that. And what more, I guess, you had brought up love languages earlier. And I feel like the fact that people kind of understand what that is now and can kind of talk about it, I think is something that I feel like is going to make the younger generation have better relationships when they're in them, because they understand how to talk about what they want and how they feel.
Yeah. I mean, I have so much faith in, Gen Z and Gen Alpha,
Is that really what the next ones are? I didn't even know that.
Gen Alpha, yeah, my niece is a Gen Alpha. It's the
I didn't even know
dopest name ever.
I didn't know that was a thing. That's a very self-indulgent name.
It's so dope. It's so fucking cool. I'm like, Gen Alpha, damn. Anyway, I have so much faith in these younger generations because they are coming up in a time where it's easy to talk about. Like, even when I went out to dinner with my younger sister today, who is going to Rutgers, she was just talking about going to frat parties and stuff, and I was like, party, do whatever you want. I've blacked out and ended up in different states. I'm not the person to throw stones at a glass fucking house. Go do your thing, but I need you to be safe. These are the things you need to do to be safe. And if you are ever not safe, you need to call me. She's free to do whatever she wants. She can have whatever she wants if she gets good grades, but I'm always very scared for her. But then she talks to me about some of these dudes that she hangs out with, and it's either she just hangs out with good dudes, or dudes are a bit more aware in this younger generation that they'll take care of them. They walk all the girls home. They have designated dudes to walk them home to their dorms and stuff at night when it's too late. I don't know. It's the idea that there's more openness. I think social media has a lot to do with it. The fact that we are so connected to everybody. Yes, there's downsides. I don't want to talk about those. There's good sides to it too. Everyone is so connected to everything going on all the time that we're understanding how different and how similar we are at the same exact time. So I think the younger generations will get better, but I don't know. It all fucking also depends on how you're raised. There's just always gonna be shitty people, right? Like dudes with podcasts, not yours, but dudes with podcasts are really big right now. Misogynists with podcasts are the whole new wave right now, especially in our generation and a couple of years older. Dudes will just get on there and just start saying shit about hating women. And that's a huge wave right now. And it's not catching the attention of anyone except middle-aged angry men. The new generation is not interested in that. They're interested in progression. They're interested in change. They're interested in inclusivity. So I think they're fucking awesome, and I'm super stoked for them to take over the world, because millennials are kind of as a millennial myself, I'm I've been through enough. I'm tired. I'm gonna just chill. I'm gonna try and live for the next few years, and just survive. That's fine.
Kind of in wrapping up, I know obviously we kind of talked and kind of poked at a little bit the fact that your anti-goal of life and where you want to be kind of, I think, has allowed you to have this sense of adventure throughout your life. But what is something in the next couple of years that you're looking forward to?
Oh my God, I'm so very excited. So in the next couple of years, I will hopefully, I'm 99% sure, I'm going to move to Valencia. I was accepted for an internship in Valencia to work with a winemaker on his vineyard in Spain. So I start my Spanish tutoring. I'm going to have a Spanish tutor once a week starting next month. And I'm going to, once I become fluent in Spanish with the indigenous dialect from Spain, I'm going to move to Valencia and move to a vineyard out there and work with the grapes and the sunshine and get the fuck out of this country.
Probably a good idea. A good exit strategy.
I'm going to just negotiate myself to a farm in Spain and just shut the fuck up and delete my social media and live on a vineyard and take my dogs and disappear.
I gotta say, something that's been very nice for me as someone who grew up in the East Coast, it's been very nice hearing the thick East Coast accent. It's something that I
so embarrassing.
It's funny. I don't I don't have it at all because I grew up in Delaware. But it's funny when I drink and when I hang around people from the East Coast, like it'll start coming out.
Bro, when you drink, right? Like
Mhm.
when I drink, I mean, if I'm like drinking, like I don't even sound East Coast. Like I sound like straight Staten Island.
I was gonna
Like,
say when you said Jersey, when you grew up in Jersey, I was like, oh yeah, I can hear that.
yeah, like where I grew. Well, like I was born in Hollywood, but then I moved because my mom was a single mom. So I grew up in Carteret, which is right across the water from Staten Island. So like they have
Mhm.
very similar accents. What I've noticed. I've never been to Staten Island because I'm not an idiot,
Don't.
but
It's not
I
worth
wouldn't
it.
go there. You know, not a borough. It just is there. I have no reason to go there. And we have very, very similar accents, like the way we say dog and coffee and like chocolate,
Mhm.
things like that. Like they're very similar. I also grew up watching the Jersey Shore and like literally going to the Jersey Shore house, and like one of my friends like stole a curtain from that house. Like that was my whole culture. It was like panning the Jersey Shore, and like I lived right next to Staten Island. Like that's all I fucking knew. Like so it's just stuck there. So when I get drunk, I start sounding like fucking Wow. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. I have seen videos. It is so sad.
Well, it was
Like,
funny.
come on! It's horrible.
We were coming back from Tennessee about a month ago, and we were in. I think we were in. Had to have been in Detroit, I think, at the airport, waiting for our flight back here to Grand Rapids, and there was a dude, or maybe it was Tennessee. I don't remember. Either way, because I'd been drinking in long flight, or flights and delays and stuff like that. But there's a dude that came and sat down next to me at the bar, and I just leaned over to my wife. I go, I would be willing to put like any amount of money that this dude's from Delco. And then she was like, what? And I was like, oh yeah, this dude's from Delco. Listen to him. And then she's like, what gives it away? I was like, Bridget, I can't explain it to you, but like when you hear certain accents, you like, I know you're from this fucking area. And then some other couple came up. He was starting to talk to them, and they're like, "Oh, where are you from?" He's like, "Oh, well, it's kind of called Delaware County, and it's like over in like Pennsylvania. It's like over." And I was like,
Got him.
I just like elbowed her, and I was like, "Fucking told you, Delco is like such a fucking distinguishable thing in that area, like the dialect of it. And that's the thing. Like I've said it enough on this show, but I still think it's so interesting to me that being from the East Coast and just how different the dialects are, only going a few hours in any direction. Like I mean, shit. Even look at New York. New York's got completely different accents depending on what kind of borough you're in, whether you're upstate or not. Like, oh yeah.
Like Brooklyn does not talk like Bronx does not talk like Manhattan. Like it's all different.
Mm-hmm.
And also within Manhattan, like we don't like it's different in Harlem than it is downtown. Like,
but then even look at Pennsylvania. Like Philadelphia's got its own.
Yep, Philly, Pittsburgh, Scranton, all of them are so different.
Yeah. Yeah, the best was when I had to explain to my wife what a John was. And again, if you're not from the East Coast, that's not as funny to you, but it literally is a descriptor of anything and everything.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
It literally could be anything.
Yeah. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, could be anything. Like, I don't know.
Toilet. It could be some dude you're fucking for money. It could be anything.
Well, this has actually been a lot of fun. I'm glad you took the time.
What? It's the truth.
No, I know. I always sometimes like when I have people come on, I'm always like, Dewey and I have talked about this quite a bit, where we make the comment about how the thing that's most valuable to us as we get older and just as people is time. And so the fact that people are willing to give so much of their time to us, essentially as strangers, is something that he and I don't take for granted. And the fact that you are out with family, celebrating your birthday and all that kind of stuff, it's one of those where you would have had there would have been no doubt. Like if you're like, hey, can we do this another time? I'd be like, absolutely. But like the fact that you're doing this and have given an hour and a half or so at this point, like that's not lost on me. So I just want to say thank you for your time, and the fact that we kept kind of coming back to this.
I was so excited to talk to you. I'm sorry I had to move it, but I was really stoked to talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. I've never had anyone post that they're going to be a guest on the show preemptively. I was like, oh shit. I was like, that's different.
Oh yeah, no, I was super excited. Like I like talking to people. I like seeing new perspectives. I like having, people be able to hear my side of things. It's always good to just be able to talk. I think the more people talk to each other and other people are able to listen, the more we can learn from each other as extremely different human beings. And it just gets better the more you share your story with other people.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you would like to plug or anything, socials or anything?
Follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active, but all my socials are the same. It's all at Rachael Madori, Rachael Madori. And then check out my website where you can see a bunch of photos of my different country travels and different things like that, which is www.rachaelmadori.com.
Are you a fan of Madori's at all as the liquor?
Midori, so that's where I didn't get my name from.
I assumed.
company that may be listening. I was a bartender when my manager when I was an adult performer in Miami when I was still a rookie. He was like, you need to pick a last name, because I didn't want to change my first name because I wanted everybody to know it was really me. Like, I didn't want to like go under like a super alias where like no one knew it was me, because I wanted everyone to know what I was doing, because that's me, and I'm a rising Leo, and whatever the fuck that means is my excuse. And I was bartending at the time, and I was really bored, and I looked over, and the bottle of Madori liqueur was right there, and I changed the I to an A, and I was like, fucking Rachael Madori. Now I just filed with the Kings County Court to legally change my name to Rachael Madori, so now it is going to officially be my government name.
Well, still didn't answer the question. Are you a fan of the liquor at all?
Oh, it's fucking disgusting.
Absolutely.
It's gross. It's fucking gross. No, but the color is beautiful.
I will say that. That's how I think it suckers everyone into trying it at least once.
It's fucking nasty. Ew. But when you look at a bar, it's the first thing you see because it's the only green fucking bottle. And maybe, I don't know. Maybe there's some like ulterior reason subconsciously I chose it. But it's fucking gross.
Well, thank you again for taking the time, and looking forward to maybe catching up down the road a little while.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. This was really great, and I thought it was a really productive and exciting conversation.
So that was my conversation with Rachael Madori. Again, want to thank her so much for taking the time to come on and chat with me, to go down the rabbit holes we went down, to just be real and honest. I know I preach a lot of times about how, I love guests that are willing to do that, but I can't understate that enough. I really, really don't think you understand how weird it is as two strangers, essentially. Her and I have never talked, and I mean, we've done a little corresponding through DMs here and there, but I mean, to have the conversation we've had and that we had, that's all 100% in the moment. And not everyone's willing to do that. Not everyone's willing to open up and just kind of bare themselves like that. I think one of the interesting things, and the more I've been thinking about it, is just this whole kind of reverse Benjamin buttoning your life. I mean, as she said, that she never kind of expected to live to 18, to 21, to 25, to, all these milestones that, typically we societally look at as almost like these milestones of becoming independent and becoming adults. Like when you turn 18, well, now you're now you're an adult. Like you can vote, you can do these things. 21, you can drink, you can do all these things. 25, like now you're almost 30. Like it's an interesting way to kind of reverse chronologically look at someone's life, to where by the time they end up being 50, 60, 70, whatever, you start going, I wish I would have done. I know my parents at times had said, you should do these things because the opportunities to do them are going to get less and less when you don't have responsibilities and when you don't have a lot to lose. And I think that that's such an interesting thing to be told, but a lot of times we don't hear it until well after when we should have. And I think Rachael has been able to live a life that is just so incredible, multi-lives actually, where she's been able to kind of live many lives because of her penchant for just kind of thinking that she's not going to make it much longer. Wasn't going to live to see these milestones. And it's really incredible to kind of think about life through that prism. And, like I said, kind of in the end, thinking about if there's kind of even that in how she has attempted to have control of even the end of her life, to kind of control it, have control of whatever it is, or to even kind of think about it from a differing perspective of, if you never thought you were going to live to see these things, but then you did, and you kind of lived this no holds barred kind of lifestyle that maybe that you feel that you want that sort of in death even. I don't know. And I guess it kind of also parallels to the fact that, like having me gone to therapy and my therapist being very kind of taken aback initially by how much death I had been around, that she, they had made the comment that, it has allowed me to understand that life is finite, to understand, to appreciate things in the moment, because I understand that we're all going to pass on and it could be at any moment. So I think there is kind of something a little bit freeing when you kind of have that mentality a little bit. Makes you appreciate life a little bit differently. I think it makes you look at life a lot differently. Yeah, I don't know. It's just really been sticking with me, especially even in thinking about Taylor Hawkins passing the last couple of days. As I'm recording this, it happened a couple of days ago, and it's that another conversation I had, and still thinking about the conversation with Rachael from about a month ago at this point, I believe. Just kind of all been serendipitously intertwined, and it's something that I have been thinking a lot about. So it's this conversation and some of the offshoot things has been very interesting to me. Also, I'm going to preface and say this, by the way, if you're watching the YouTube version or you've already just watched it, now you're listening to this, I don't give a fuck. If you message me or whatever, not condoning that Rachael and I were smoking while we were talking, I don't give a fuck. Like, it's 2022. It's pretty much legal everywhere. And as you heard, we have found benefits for us smoking. For the most part, I've talked about it before. No one has really given me any shit about it. But this is literally the first time you will be able to literally see my guest or myself partaking. So don't give a fuck. Just if you got something negative to say about it, just keep it to yourself, honestly. It's not going to change anything, and it is what it is. So beyond all that, let's wrap up this episode. It is plenty long enough without me rambling on here at the end. If you would like to keep up with Rachael, it is simple. You can find her Facebook and Instagram at Rachael Madori. Crazy, as you heard at the end, she is literally going to change her last name legally to Madori. So that would be kind of exciting, and I feel like kind of a fresh start, maybe, even though it's been her name professionally for a long time. Maybe, again, kind of taking ownership of it will make it feel a little different, will make you change how you feel. I don't know. Maybe when we have another chat down the road, that'll be something I ask her. But yeah, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all Rachael Madori. And if you would like to keep up with the podcast, you can find us simple enough at BrewSpeakPod. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you are, that is where we can be found. You can find us on YouTube, where you can see the videos where applicable. And rate, review, subscribe. You know why that's important. Please do it if you can. And before we get out of here, I want to thank our sponsors once again. On Point Pomade. Use our code BSP15, save 15% off your total purchase order. The Bean Bastard. And Rockability.com. Use our code BREWtally and take 10% off your total purchase order. And for the Brewtallyspeaking podcast, I am John. I will see you all next week, where our guest is Isaac from Kubla Khan. That was a fun chat, and I can't wait to get into that one with you. Hopefully you enjoy hearing grown men talking about buying houses in the last year or two and home projects, and a little bit about their viral moments with Kate Beckinsale. But we'll get into that next week. I'll talk to you then.